The search for purpose, when our hearts feel heavy with the question, what is the point? What is my purpose? Let's go into a wisdom well together. Whether this question has come up before or whether it's alive in you right now, why not dig a wisdom well? Why not go through this guided meditation together to deepen our own seeing, our own truth around this important question, what is my purpose? So we first dig our well. And to dig our wisdom well, we are willing to put our hands in the dirt. And that means touching into and accessing the parts of our song, the song of our heart, the song of our mind, the song of our gut felt sense of the body. We feel into the songs that are contracted, that are perhaps a bit heavy with this idea of purpose. Because purpose can feel like a burden when it lacks wisdom. Purpose can feel like a contradiction, can feel like a constraint when it lacks wisdom. We don't tend to ask the question, what is the meaning of life? What is my purpose? When we are enjoying ourselves, when we feel free and open, we tend to ask when we feel that heaviness, that contraction that tells us where we have a lack of the water of wisdom, like a loving gardener that walks around the garden and finds the patches of dry earth that lack water. We are finding this part of ourselves that feels the heaviness of the weight of what's the point? What's the point, really? And this can happen when we look at the state of the world, when we feel powerless to make choices, when we feel like our choices are limited, when our ability to respond to those choices feels removed or feels like spitting in the wind. What is one little life going to do? How do I create some significance? How do I find meaning? How do I find questions to this burning? How do I find answers to these burning questions within me? What is the deepest truth? What is the truth of purpose? Is there a purpose? Is there a purpose beyond life? Is there a purpose within life? Is any of it significant? Is any of it meaningful? Now I know it can feel like rubbing salt on a wound, on a tenderness inside of us, but I think it's important for us to be honest with ourselves when these questions are still alive in us and still create some kind of struggle or stuckness or suffering. I think to pretend, to say, I know the answer when something inside whispers, not satisfied. I think it's important. I think it's important to sit and to go, maybe it's true I'm not satisfied with this answer that I've inherited, I've swallowed from an external source. Maybe I do want to see for myself what is the deep truth here. And that means being willing to be uncomfortable, and it means being willing to get our hands a little bit in the dirt. So I'm going to slow down now as we really walk into this together, as I guide this wisdom well meditation on the topic of purpose. So we be a kind friend to ourselves. We be a loving, open space to all the songs inside of us. The songs that perhaps long or ache, or the songs that are curious, that want to really know. To explore and unpack this idea of purpose. That can seem like a cruel carrot, like other people seem to have this, but I don't sometimes. Like the torturing of the minds, questioning and questioning the questions, trying to find an answer that nourishes and satisfies. So we be kind to these parts of ourselves. We honor and acknowledge the parts of us that aren't satisfied with the words of beautiful teachers and teachings, perhaps, but words nonetheless empty of the deeper seeing and the deeper felt knowing of being that only comes when we see for ourselves. And now we create a bucket, and when we create a bucket, we formulate, what is the question? What is it that I want to know? What do I want to send my bucket inwards to discover or find? This is not to say we decide on the answer that we want to find. This is just to say the direction that we want to send our bucket in. So here are some buckets that have worked really well for me and for those I serve, my community. You're welcome to try them out or to find your own question or to adapt any of these in your own perfect way. The buckets that I love, that are solid and reliable, that work for me are, what is the deeper truth? So this is an intention. What is the deeper truth about purpose? Another good, solid, reliable bucket is, how does wisdom see this? How does wisdom see purpose? Being willing to discover. How does wisdom see this? So either use one of those or adapt it or find your own intention now, because the bucket is question and intention. Every question we ask sends us on a quest. It directs attention, and anything our attention is on, we are tuned into. This is how we shift into a space of resonance and interpreting and translating resonance deeper than the surface mind, deeper than the beautiful stream of endless chattering thoughts that maybe some days doesn't feel too beautiful. But we set this intention. So state your intention now, and this is where we lower the bucket. And now we open. That is the next stage of this wisdom well. We're opening. And this is really where we are inviting the bucket to open to the water of wisdom. This is feeling, sensing, opening to the bucket, filling with that water. And to do that, we first are tuning in, and then we are translating, and finally we might want to be noticing with a bit of testing to check the purity of the water, so that we are mindfully discerning the difference between imagination and ego and true deep seeing wisdom. So let us start with tuning in. And what helps is to have the question in mind, what is the deeper truth about purpose? What is the deeper truth about purpose? And then to gently take attention, that which we can move from putting attention on a felt sense or on a thought or on a visual or on a taste or a smell. Attention can move between the senses. That's how we know it is something prior to the senses. That's how we know it belongs to a part of us that is deeper. And we set an intention to direct attention. Simply, I'm interested. Simply, I am sincerely wanting to know what is the deeper truth about purpose. Being patient, setting attention and sending attention to the felt sense in the body, the way the heart feels, the chest area, the way the stomach area feels, the overall felt sense in the body. And take the word purpose, and simply notice when that word is looked at, does it open your body, close, somewhere in between? And there's no wrong or right here, because the same word can open or close depending on how much wisdom we have in our bucket, which is how clear our seeing is. And it is no fault of any of us. It is simply that until we see for ourselves and discover for ourselves, the words remain just words. And it is so helpful to know how the word is landing for you. Purpose. So sit with the word for a moment and simply observe, simply be kind, as if you are noticing how a song might feel in your body. If you played a piece of music and you noticed whether it made you feel nice and awake and expanded, wonderful, or whether it felt heavy, or whether it felt uncomfortable and incongruent, simply to notice purpose. If purpose were a song, how might that feel in your body? Does it have an edge? Does it feel a little tight and heavy, perhaps fluttering or moving? Or does it feel open and expanded and neutral? Purpose. This high idea of a life purpose. And notice the thoughts that happen around this idea of purpose. And invite the deeper truth. What is the deepest truth about life purpose? By setting this intention, by tuning in, which is simply patiently moving into the felt sense of the body, noticing the open and the closed. Now we move into translating, where we let the water fill even more of the bucket. What is the deeper truth about purpose? How does wisdom see purpose? If you feel like thoughts and ideas easily flow for you, and you invite them with let myself know, I'm going to let myself know, I'm going to use my imagination, as if wisdom can dialogue, as if wisdom can just easily turn into words. Nothing too fancy, nothing Hollywood, just simply sitting with us and noticing the thoughts that land with more solidness, the thoughts that just land gently with peace, and capturing them by starting to gently open your eyes and journal or write. So my suggestion is, if this starts to flow nicely for you, that you pause this guided meditation and you spend some time dialoguing and writing. And then when you're ready to come back to continue, that you do. If the words are not flowing, if the insight feels like it's difficult to translate from felt, feeling, and sense into words, then continue. And I'm going to offer you possibilities, seeds, if you will. And I'm going to share with you some of what wisdom has taught me about purpose. But I invite you to not just feel, sense from the surface of sticking only with the words where we get caught in the semantics. I invite you to use my words, but to set an intention to feel from where the words are coming. That way my translation, because I have spent my life learning how to translate wisdom, so I offer it to you as I am translating the seeing, and this may be supportive and helpful for you. So the first insight to potentially tune into is that when we feel like purpose is something we're supposed to do, First of all, the word supposed to is binding and heavy for a reason, because it lacks truth. And it is not true. And then something we're supposed to do carries another sense of burden. It externalizes us so that we have to check our purpose with others. We become dependent on others' validation in order to feel like we have found and lived and fulfilled our purpose. And then there's always the question of, how do I know I've done it? And what if I have already? So the chasing of the doing purpose is part of a lack of seeing. So I offer you this. Instead of asking, what should I do? That we ask, who am I? That purpose lies in the being, expressed through the doing. And that when we put doing ahead of being, it closes, because that is not true. Always being is first. How would an apple tree know what to do if it was at war with who it was and didn't know its being? If it was asleep to it, in conflict with it? An apple tree does what it is. When we believe our purpose is something we're supposed to do, we look at the world and say, do you need apples? And then feel the frustration of not living our purpose because we can't find a doing that is met in the world. And what if people say, I want you to do oranges? It binds us to the external world to seek a purpose that is doing focused. And then purpose becomes a burden of, I am worth less because I can do less today. And then we measure those who do more apparently and think they are somehow worth more. And all of this is not how wisdom sees. The deepest place of being first and doing as an expression of being means that worth is in the being. It is already innate. It is already a part of the package. You are worthy because you exist. Your existence is what matters. Doing from that is a gift. Your presence is the present. It is the gift. And how we free our gifts from our apple tree being is to recognize that your purpose is simply to be who you are at the deepest place of authenticity. It is to notice when I am not trying, when I am not trying to impress, trying to be clever, when I'm not trying to get something, respect, worth, appreciation. Who shows up? Who shows up? When you are free of fear and desire, another kind of desire shows up. It's desire without teeth or without grasping. It is pure and it is simply the being's nature to express. And all of nature teaches us this. You look at anything in nature and it is doing what it is being. Its design, its innate intelligence woven into the fabric of its DNA, shining and expressing and singing the song of its being. And yes, there is still effort, but it is effortless effort because it is the true meaning of natural self-expression. When the being is expressed through the design of life's patterns and songs, then even you making a cup of coffee for someone will be a blessing. 20 people can do the same doing. But it is those who bring their being to the doing that bless their doing with their being. And this is not an abstract concept. This is something to be discovered, because if you're asking, but Cole, what is my apple tree? It is you when you feel joy, when you feel love, when you feel timeless. It is the natural flow of expressing your being in the moment. And like everything in nature is created, designed to serve, life will always find a way to serve life. And you know this. When you are sitting with a friend, a client, someone you care about, and in that moment you care. In that moment your attention is on being of service, of deep listening, without performance, without the doing focus. You are simply being very present. You will notice how words just flow. You will notice how action just flows. If that person suddenly fell or tripped, you wouldn't hesitate to go to them, to help them stand up, to check if they were okay. That is being expressed. There's no thinking, what is my purpose right now? So when the words flow without thinking and the actions flow without thinking, that is where the being is being free, where your apple tree is free to express through doing. You get to discover this. You get to notice, what makes my sap rise? Well, loving yourself will make the sap rise. As in, this is on purpose. Trying to do something to prove you are worthy or to prove significance, out of any kind of trying, the sap will drop because it lacks clear seeing. The natural expression, you will see a pattern. You will see, what naturally expresses tends to be what? A safe space holder, a healer, a teacher, a coach, a leader, a builder, an artist, a creating of beauty. You will see the patterns, and there can be more than one weaving in threads of being that come into expression. But it's what is natural. And then you can back that up with developing skills, with learning and knowledge. You can back your apple tree, but your purpose is in the being. And we live in a world where people always ask us, what do you do? And the question is loaded, isn't it? The question is weighted. And sometimes the question feels like pressure, and other times it feels very surface. But notice how we answer. We don't answer, I do coaching, I do teaching, I do writing. We say, I am. Which means we live in a world that turns what we do into who we are, instead of living in a world where we put what we are first and look for beautiful ways to express that through our doing. So our language tells us about the lack of wisdom, the lack of clear seeing, and then the language binds this contracted state. And it doesn't mean we have to go and change language with other people, because of course this is something for your own heart. This is something to speak to your own heart. I am not what I do. Then we climb out of the doing box and we realize an apple tree can do in so many ways. And it's also just being an apple tree that contributes. We fulfill the purpose that we are here to fulfill by being free, by freeing your being to express in everything you do, by bringing your apple tree being to making a cup of coffee. And then wisdom shows us that all the beautiful ways to do, the ones that are the most sacred, are the ones that carry the song of your being, because it is naturally expressed. And then there is no more worthy and less worthy work. That making coffee for someone to earn a living can be just as sacred as teaching spiritual, quote unquote, appearing work, or making something that looks quite significant in the world. Then it becomes a practical problem, not a personal problem, whether you choose to create business or be employed, what kind of career path you choose, because you cannot fail to be an apple tree, and neither can you succeed. You can, however, feel trapped and contracted, or expanded and open and free. And then you might notice, as I have, that once you free your apple tree and you give it room to breathe in the world, you may find it is a joy to turn that into a path that looks like a career or a business. But it's not necessary. And wisdom shows us, never underestimate the song that your presence sings silently, just because you are here, just because you exist. And my beautiful friends and souls and colleagues, I wish for even a moment you could feel and sense how much your soul, your presence, your being is loved at the deepest place by the whole universe, by life itself. And I know that on the surface, this human existence can make it very, very difficult to feel that, to see that, to know that. I wish that you could feel the song of this, felt in your heart, and to trust the felt sense of that, even when the eyes and the mind have no data to back it up. That cracking open of the heart, that felt sense, that is the place where wisdom takes authority. And this is how we liberate ourselves. This is how we bring our wisdom to the world, not so much through empty doing or empty words, but simply by bringing this natural being that wants to stretch and wants to fill all the little dark spaces with love, that wants to teach first the student in you, even the human student that's wired for survival programming, patiently with love, to teach the fear, to teach the shame, to teach the resistance, so that your being can shine through in ordinary moments, like the sacred act of making someone a cup of coffee. And that's how we live purpose. Living our wisdom is trusting without blind faith, trusting in the felt sense that when I am being my deep true self, which is not an abstract idea, it is simply this openness being more present, this openness. Every sacred moment of turning closed into open makes more room for your being to be present. That is purpose. That's worth incarnating for. That's worth this tough, insanely difficult thing called climbing into software, hardware, wired for survival, built to create the idea of separation, to realize that it's not my life's purpose and that it's not a doing. It is life's purpose flowing through the being.